Leela sat at the small round table in her apartment, staring at the rejection email on her screen. She had applied for yet another job with an alien corporation, and, as expected, they had turned her down. She wasn't surprised anymore. It had been months since her husband's tragic accident, and each day felt heavier than the last. She had hoped things would get easier with time, but so far, it only seemed to get worse. Her son Max was playing quietly in the corner, his small fingers working on a puzzle. His innocence was the only thing that brought her some peace, but even he could sense the tension in the air. The bills piled up, and the rent was overdue. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest, making it harder to breathe. Leela had always been a hard-working woman. She had worked in human engineering before Max was born, and after her husband's death, she tried to continue her career. But things were different now. The world had changed. Aliens ruled most of the economy, and they had no interest in hiring humans. Their corporations were vast, and their employees mostly consisted of their own kind. They didn't care about human qualifications, only alien connections and experience. Leela had tried, over and over, to prove that she was capable. She had sent out dozens of applications to various alien-run companies, but each time, her resume was ignored or dismissed with a standard reply, "Not suitable for the position." The worst part was the constant rejection from the alien interviewers, who often told her, "We are looking for someone with more advanced experience." It was clear to Leela that no alien company would ever hire her. She had no special powers, no connections, and most painfully, no status in the alien-dominated world. She was just a human, a widow struggling to survive in a world that seemed to have no place for her. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from her sister, who had been trying to help. "Leela, have you thought about moving back in with us? Maybe things will be easier if you're not on your own." Leela sighed. She loved her sister, but she couldn't bring herself to go back. She had been independent for so long. Her husband had been her rock, and she couldn't bear the thought of relying on anyone else now. She wanted to make it on her own, for Max, if nothing else. Max looked up from his puzzle, his big brown eyes full of curiosity. "Mom, why do you look sad?" Leela smiled at him, though her heart felt heavy. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm just thinking about some things." He stood up and walked over to her, wrapping his small arms around her waist. "Don't worry, Mom. You always fix things. You'll figure it out." Tears welled up in Leela's eyes. Her son had no idea how much his words meant to her. He was the only thing that kept her going. The next day, Leela found herself in front of her computer once more, scrolling through job listings. She knew it was pointless, but she couldn't stop herself from trying. Then, something caught her eye. It was a job posting for a human. Yes, a human, on a new colony being built on the edge of the galaxy. The job was with a human-run organization, something that wasn't common these days. The position was in engineering, something Leela knew she could handle. She quickly opened the listing and read through it. The job required experience in basic engineering, but there was a note at the end. "Human candidates are encouraged to apply. Must be willing to relocate to the frontier colony." Leela felt a spark of hope. Could this be the opportunity she had been waiting for? She was skeptical, but there was something about this listing that felt different. The idea of relocating to a frontier colony was intimidating. It was far from Earth, and the settlement was still in its early stages. The job would require a lot of work, and there were sure to be many challenges. But Leela knew she had to try. She took a deep breath and clicked on the Apply Now button. As she filled out the application, her heart raced. She told herself it would probably be another rejection, but deep down, a part of her couldn't help but hope. She wrote about her skills, her previous work experience, and most importantly, her determination to provide a better life for her son. After submitting the application, Leela sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, this was the change she had been waiting for. She couldn't be sure, but she had to try. As the days passed, Lila didn't hear anything from the job listing. She had almost forgotten about it when, one evening, an unexpected notification popped up on her screen. It was an email. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. The subject line read, "Human Engineer Position. Invitation for interview." Lila's heart skipped a beat. She quickly opened the email, reading the message that would change everything. "Dear Ms. Lila, we were impressed by your application. We would like to offer you an interview for the position. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to arrange a time." Lila stared at the screen, unable to believe her eyes. An interview? Was this really happening? Max walked over to her once again, sensing her excitement. "Mom, what's wrong?" Lila grinned, tears filling her eyes once more. "Sweetheart, I think we might have a chance." This was it. The opportunity Lila had been hoping for had finally arrived. Lila stood at the spaceport, clutching Max's hand tightly. The sound of rushing footsteps and the hum of engines filled the air as crowds of passengers moved to their respective ships. The once familiar atmosphere of the city felt distant now, replaced by the strange and exciting world of space travel. Her heart raced with anticipation. She could hardly believe they were leaving Earth. It was all happening so fast. Just yesterday, she had been sitting in front of her computer screen, nervously preparing for the interview. Now, here they were, about to board a spaceship headed for a new colony in the far reaches of space. Max tugged on her sleeve, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Mom, is it really as big as they say?" Lila smiled and knelt down to his level. "Yes, sweetheart, it's huge. We're going to a brand new place, where we'll start fresh. You'll make new friends, and we'll both get a chance to help build something amazing." Max's face lit up. "I can't wait to see it. Do you think I'll get to play outside on the new planet?" "Absolutely," Lila replied, her heart swelling with pride. "There will be lots of room for you to explore, as long as you're careful." As they boarded the ship, Lila couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was their fresh start, but it also felt like they were stepping into the unknown. The colony they were heading to was still in its early stages, and Lila knew it wouldn't be easy. But she was ready. She had no choice but to be. For Max. For their future. The spaceship was sleek and modern, with clean, bright walls and comfortable seats. Lila and Max settled into their assigned seats, buckling in for the long journey ahead. As the engines roared to life, she couldn't help but wonder what life would be like on the new colony. Would she fit in? Would she be able to make a real difference? The flight took several days, and during that time, Lila tried to get used to the idea of her new life. She spent time reading over her work materials, preparing for the challenges she would face when she arrived. The job was going to be difficult, but Lila had always been resourceful, and she knew she could learn whatever was needed. Max, on the other hand, seemed to take everything in stride. He made friends with the other children aboard the ship, sharing stories about Earth and asking questions about space. His enthusiasm was infectious, and it reminded Lila of why she had to push forward. She had to do this for him, to give him a life full of opportunity and adventure. One evening, as the stars outside the ship seemed to twinkle like diamonds, Lila sat beside Max, looking out at the vast expanse of space. "Are you scared, Mom?" he asked softly, his small voice filled with innocence. Lila smiled and wrapped an arm around him. "A little bit," she admitted. "But sometimes, being scared is just a sign that you're doing something new and exciting. We're going to be okay, Max. I promise." Max nodded, leaning against her. "I trust you, Mom." The next few days passed in a blur of meals, quiet conversations, and more learning about the new world they were about to enter. Lila grew more confident with each passing hour. She knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and she was determined to make it work. When the ship finally arrived at the colony, Lila's heart skipped a beat. The sight of the new planet below was breathtaking. The surface was mostly barren, dotted with clusters of buildings still under construction. But there was a sense of life there, a feeling that things were moving forward. This was where they would start anew. The landing was smooth, and the ship gently touched down on the surface of the planet. Layla and Max were among the first to disembark, stepping onto the planet's soil for the first time. The air was fresh and cool, a stark contrast to the polluted atmosphere of Earth. It smelled of something new, something full of potential. A few people from the colony were there to greet them, most of them humans, but there were a few aliens as well. They were tall and thin, their faces a mix of curiosity and warmth. Layla had never interacted much with aliens, but she knew they were essential to the colony's success. They had skills and knowledge that Earth's people couldn't replicate, and the cooperation between humans and aliens would be key to their survival here. "Welcome to New Horizon," one of the humans greeted them. "I'm Captain Ilara. We've been expecting you." Leela shook her hand, grateful for the warm welcome. "Thank you. We're excited to be here." Captain Ilara gave her a nod. "We're glad to have you. We could use someone with your experience. The work here is challenging, but we're making progress." As they walked toward the colony's main hub, Leela couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. This was it. This was the beginning of something incredible. It wasn't going to be easy, but Leela had never been afraid of hard work. She knew that with time, she would find her place here, just like Max would. The colony was a mix of new technology and old-world charm. There were homes being built, schools and communal spaces where people could gather and work together. Leela felt the sense of community immediately. It was different from the loneliness she had felt back on Earth. There was something about this place that made her believe in the possibility of a better future. They were given a small apartment in one of the newly constructed buildings, a simple but cozy space. Max immediately found a small window where he could look out at the colony, his eyes wide with wonder. Leela sat on the couch, reflecting on how much their lives had changed in such a short time. She was no longer just surviving. She was starting to thrive. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of purpose. The next morning, Leela reported to her new job, eager to begin her work. She was introduced to her team, a diverse group of humans and aliens who were all working toward the same goal. It was a challenging environment, but Leela felt ready for it. She had always been good at figuring things out, and now was the time to prove it. As the day went on, Leela's confidence grew. She was already starting to make an impact, offering solutions and contributing to the team's progress. She wasn't just a widow trying to make a living anymore. She was a key part of something bigger, something that would change the future. This was just the beginning. The days on the new colony were beginning to blend together for Leela. Each morning, she would wake up early to start her work, and Max would be there beside her, ready for a new adventure in the colony. The air was fresh, the stars bright in the sky, and the promise of a new life seemed real. But as time went on, Leela began to realize that no matter how much she wanted things to be perfect, the challenges were far from over. The work at the colony was harder than she had imagined. The tasks were demanding, and Leela found herself struggling to keep up with her new colleagues, many of whom had more experience with the high-tech equipment and alien technology. While she had been trained in Earth-based engineering, nothing could have prepared her for the advanced tools and designs she was now using. She spent long hours studying the manuals, trying to understand the new technology. Every mistake she made felt like a setback, and the pressure was mounting. At times, she would overhear quiet conversations among her colleagues, some of them questioning whether she was truly cut out for the job. It made her heart ache, but Leela kept her head down and pushed forward, determined not to give in to the doubts. Max, however, was thriving. He loved exploring the colony, making new friends with the other children, and learning about the alien cultures that were present. He would often come home excited, talking about the things he had seen and the new games he had learned to play. Leela was grateful for that. His happiness was a constant reminder of why she was doing all of this. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. She had come here to provide a better life for him, but would she truly succeed? One evening, as Leela sat in her small apartment, looking over the work orders for the next day, she heard a knock at the door. She was surprised. It wasn't common for anyone to drop by unannounced. She opened the door to find Captain Ilara standing in the hallway, a concerned look on her face. "Leela, may I come in?" Captain Ilara asked. "Of course," Lila replied, stepping aside to let her in. Captain Ilara sat down across from Leela, her gaze gentle but serious. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." Leela felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Is something wrong? "No, nothing like that," Captain Ilara said. "I've been noticing how hard you've been working, and I wanted to check in with you. It seems like you're struggling a bit with the transition. Is there anything I can do to help?" Leela hesitated, unsure of how to respond. She didn't want to admit that she was struggling. She didn't want anyone to think that she couldn't handle the challenges of this new life. "I'm just trying to catch up," Leela said, her voice steady. "The technology here is different from what I'm used to. I'll get the hang of it." Captain Ilara nodded, her expression understanding. "I know it's a lot to take in, but you don't have to do it alone. You've already shown that you're willing to work hard, and we appreciate that. But there's no shame in asking for help when you need it." Leela felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "I just don't want to let anyone down. I want to prove that I can do this, that I can contribute." "You don't need to prove anything," Captain Ilara said with a kind smile. "You're already doing more than most. Just take it one step at a time, and don't be afraid to lean on your team." Leela nodded, feeling a bit lighter. The weight of her worries seemed to lift, if only for a moment. She realized that she had been so focused on proving herself that she had forgotten to ask for help. And maybe that was okay. No one expected her to know everything right away. Over the next few weeks, things started to get better. Leela began to feel more comfortable with the technology, with the help of her colleagues. She learned how to use the alien tools, asking questions when she didn't understand something, and slowly, she started to contribute in meaningful ways. It wasn't easy, and there were still mistakes, but every day was a little bit easier. Max, too, continued to thrive. He was making friends from all over the galaxy, humans, aliens, and even androids. He had become a regular in the colony's recreation area, where children gathered to play and learn. He often came home with new stories about the things he had seen and done, his excitement contagious. Lila couldn't help but feel proud of him. He was adapting so well to this new life, and his happiness made all the struggles worth it. One afternoon, as Leela was working on a project, a young alien woman approached her. She was tall, with green skin and long, flowing hair, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Excuse me, Leela," the alien woman asked. "I've been watching your work, and I think you're doing an amazing job. I know things have been difficult, but I just wanted to say I'm really impressed with how much you've learned." Leela looked up, surprised by the compliment. "Thank you," she said. "I'm still trying to get the hang of it." "You're doing better than you think," the alien woman said with a smile. "You're not just learning the technology, you're learning how to make it your own. That's something not everyone can do." Leela's heart swelled with gratitude. It wasn't just the words, but the recognition. It reminded her that she wasn't alone in this journey, that there were people who saw her effort and believed in her. As the weeks turned into months, Leila grew more confident in her role at the colony. She had learned not to rush, to take her time and ask for help when she needed it. The colony was becoming more than just a place to survive. It was becoming a place where she could thrive. And most importantly, it was a place where Max could have the future he deserved. But the challenges weren't over yet. There were still many obstacles to overcome, and Leela knew that the road ahead would not always be easy. But for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. Leela couldn't believe it. She sat there, staring at the email that had appeared on her screen just moments ago. She had received an invitation for an interview. It felt like a dream, one she wasn't sure she was ready to wake up from. She had been preparing herself for rejection for so long that the idea of a real opportunity seemed impossible. Her hands trembled as she clicked the reply button and typed a quick response. "Thank you for this opportunity. I am eager to discuss the position further. Please let me know a convenient time for the interview." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Max, who had been quietly playing with his toys on the floor, noticed his mother's excitement. He looked up at her with curious eyes. "Mom, what's going on?" Leela smiled and knelt down to him, her heart swelling with hope. "Sweetheart, I got an interview for the job I applied for. This could be our chance." Max's face lit up with a bright smile. "You're going to get the job, Mom. I just know it." Leela hugged him tightly, feeling her heart swell. She had come so close to giving up, but now there was a spark of hope. She had to keep moving forward, for both her and Max. The interview was scheduled for the following day. Lila spent the rest of the evening preparing. She went through her resume again, double-checking her qualifications, making sure she was ready to explain everything clearly. She also researched the organization as much as she could. She learned that it was a small, human-run company that was building a new colony on the edge of space. The job wasn't easy, but it seemed to align perfectly with her skills. She felt more confident with each passing minute, though she still couldn't shake the nervousness. The next day, Layla dressed in the best outfit she could find, a simple but clean blouse and trousers that she had worn for a few job interviews in the past. She knew it wasn't fancy, but it would have to do. She sat down in front of her computer, trying to calm her racing heart. The screen blinked, and within moments, a face appeared. The man on the screen was older, with short, dark hair and a serious expression. His office background was plain, but it looked like a busy work environment. "Ms. Leela, it's a pleasure to meet you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm Marcus Anderson, head of the Human Engineering Department at Frontier Systems. How are you today?" Leela took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I'm doing well, thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Marcus smiled, seeming to sense her nervousness. "Don't worry, Ms. Leela. I know these interviews can be stressful. Let's just talk about your experience, and we'll take it one step at a time." The conversation began. Leela explained her previous work experience, how she had worked as a systems engineer back on Earth, designing and maintaining complex machinery. She spoke about her qualifications, how she had always been good at solving problems, and how she could adapt quickly to new situations. As she spoke, her confidence grew. She wasn't just telling Marcus what he wanted to hear. She was showing him her true self. Marcus nodded, asking occasional questions about her skills. He seemed genuinely interested, not like the cold, uninterested alien interviewers she had dealt with in the past. After a few minutes, Marcus paused and looked at her thoughtfully. "You're highly qualified, Ms. Leela," he said. "But I'll be honest with you. The work on this colony is tough. It's not like a regular city. We're still building, and there are a lot of challenges. It's a place for people who are resourceful and ready to get their hands dirty. Are you sure this is something you're ready for?" Leela didn't hesitate. "I'm ready. I've faced challenges before. I can handle this." Marcus studied her for a moment longer, his gaze sharp. Then he smiled. "Good. I like that. We need people who are willing to take risks and put in the effort. I think you'll be a great fit for this position." Leela felt her breath catch in her throat. Was he really offering her the job? She didn't want to get her hopes up too quickly, but the way he spoke gave her hope. Marcus continued, "There's one thing I should mention, though. This colony is still in its early stages. You'll be far from Earth, and things aren't always easy out there. You'll be working with a mix of humans and aliens, and the environment can be harsh. But I believe in the people we bring here. If you're willing to take the plunge, we'll support you every step of the way." Leela took another deep breath. "I'm willing. I'll do whatever it takes." Marcus smiled again. "I like your attitude, Ms. Leela. We'll send you the details shortly. Congratulations, you've got the job." For a moment, Leila couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had the job. She had done it. She had proven herself in a world that had rejected her time and time again. Max came running into the room, eager to know what was happening. Leila could barely contain her excitement. "Sweetheart, guess what?" she said, pulling him into a hug. "I got the job. We're going to a new colony, and we're going to start a new life." Max's eyes went wide with joy. "We're really going?" Leela nodded, feeling the weight of her words. This was the chance they had been waiting for, a chance to start fresh, away from the constant struggle. As Leela ended the video call and sat back in her chair, a sense of relief washed over her. The uncertainty of the past months had been replaced with hope. She had taken a risk, and it had paid off. She was ready for whatever came next, and she would face it with the same determination that had kept her going all this time. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one that held endless possibilities. The colony was bustling with activity as Leela continued to work hard on her new projects. Every day, she grew more accustomed to her tasks, and the technology, which had once seemed so alien, now felt more like an extension of herself. But even though she was progressing, there was still a part of her that felt unsettled. She had come so far, but the feeling of being an outsider, the feeling of being different, lingered. One afternoon, while Leela was working in the engineering bay, Captain Ilara walked in. Leila looked up from her console, surprised to see her. The captain had become one of the few people she trusted, someone who had given her a chance when she had doubted herself. "Leela," Captain Ilara said, smiling warmly, "I need your help with something important." Leela stood up, eager to prove herself. "What is it?" "I'm ready." "We've been having some issues with the energy flow in the main reactor," Captain Ilara explained. "It's been inconsistent, and we think there might be a fault somewhere deep within the system. We need someone who understands both Earth technology and alien systems. I've been watching your progress, and I think you're the right person for the job." Leela's heart raced. This was the moment she had been waiting for. A chance to prove that she truly belonged. But there was a voice in her head, the same one that had whispered doubts before, reminding her of her lack of experience. "What if I mess it up?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't fix it?" Captain Ilara looked at her with understanding, a reassuring smile on her face. "You've come so far already. We wouldn't ask you if we didn't believe you could do it." Leela nodded, though her nerves were still on edge. She gathered her tools and followed Captain Ilara to the reactor control room, her mind racing with the challenge ahead. This wasn't just about fixing a machine. It was about showing everyone, and herself, that she was capable. As they arrived at the reactor, the room was filled with the hum of alien machinery, the lights flashing in rhythm with the energy pulses. Leila stood still for a moment, taking it all in. The complexity of the systems around her was both awe-inspiring and overwhelming. But she knew one thing: she had to start somewhere. Captain Ilara handed her a datapad. "Here's the schematic of the reactor. It's a mix of human and alien designs, so we need to be careful. One wrong move, and we could cause a power surge." Leela took the pad, her hand steady despite the pressure. She scanned the schematic, looking for any anomalies. There were thousands of tiny details to go over: connections, energy flow, temperature readings, but Leila was determined to find the problem. Her eyes darted over the screen, picking up patterns that others might have missed. She had always been good at spotting things out of place, a skill she had honed back on Earth when working on smaller projects. After a few minutes of intense focus, she spotted something. A tiny fluctuation in the energy readings that didn't match the rest of the system. It was subtle, but it was there. Lila's heart skipped a beat. She had found something. "I think I'd found the issue," she said, her voice steady with newfound confidence. Captain Ilara leaned over to take a look. "Where?" Leela pointed to a section of the schematic. It's this energy conduit here. It's not connected properly, which is causing the instability. We'll need to realign it and reroute the power." "Good catch," Captain Ilara said. "Let's get to work." They spent the next few hours working together to realign the conduit. Lila led the way, using her knowledge of both Earth and alien technology to guide their efforts. As she worked, the initial nerves she had felt began to fade, replaced by a sense of focus and purpose. She wasn't just fixing a reactor. She was proving to herself that she could do this. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the work was complete. Lila stood back and wiped the sweat from her brow, her body aching from the long hours. She had done it. Captain Ilara pressed a button on the control panel, and the reactor's energy flow began to stabilize. The lights in the room flickered back to their normal brightness, and the hum of the machinery became steady once again. "It's working," Captain Ilara said, her voice filled with admiration. "You did it." Leela felt a rush of pride. She had faced her fear, put her skills to the test, and come out on top. This was more than just fixing a machine. It was about proving that she belonged here, that she had something to offer. "Thank you for believing in me," Leela said, turning to Captain Ilara. "I couldn't have done it without your support." "You did it all yourself," Captain Ilara replied. "I just gave you the chance. You've earned this, Leela." As they left the reactor room, Leela felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly confident in her abilities. She had come to this colony with nothing, unsure of what the future held. But now she was starting to see the possibilities. She could make a life here, for herself and for Max. Later that evening, as Leela sat down to dinner with Max, she couldn't help but smile. He was excited, talking animatedly about his day, his new friends, and the things he had learned. She listened, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Max was happy, and she was finally starting to find her place in this strange new world. For the first time in months, Leela felt like she could breathe. The road ahead would still be challenging, but she knew she was no longer alone. She had proven herself, and that was the first step toward the future she had always dreamed of. The days passed quickly after Leela's success with the reactor. Her confidence had grown, but so had the expectations placed on her. People had begun to notice her abilities. Captain Ilara was often seen speaking highly of her to others, and before long, Leela found herself involved in more projects, each one more challenging than the last. One morning, just as Leela was preparing to start another long day in the workshop, she received an unexpected visit from the colony's head engineer, Jurek. He was an alien, tall and imposing, with dark skin that shimmered like polished metal. His species, the Zorvani, were known for their advanced knowledge of machinery, and they were both feared and respected across the galaxy. "Leela," Jurek began in his deep voice, "I've heard about your recent work. The reactor issue you fixed, among other things. I have a proposition for you." Leela stood up, unsure of what to expect. "A proposition?" "I need someone who understands both human and alien technology. I have a project that's been stuck for weeks, and I believe you might be the one to solve it." He paused, studying her closely. "If you accept, it will be a significant step in your career here. This is the kind of work that could change everything for you." Leela's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting for an opportunity like this, but the pressure was immense. What if she couldn't live up to expectations? What if she failed? Her mind raced as she weighed the options. "You're asking me to help you with a big project?" she asked, trying to sound calm. "Yes," Jurek replied. "It's a new energy system that could revolutionize our power grid. We've encountered problems with the compatibility of human and alien materials, and it's been slow going. But I believe your knowledge of Earth technology could help bridge the gap. It's a complicated task, but I know you have the potential to succeed." Leela's mind flashed back to her struggles in the past. She had come to this place feeling like an outsider, unsure of where she fit in. But now, this was her chance to prove herself. She couldn't let doubt hold her back. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves that still lingered. Jarek nodded. "Good. Meet me in the central lab in an hour. I'll brief you on the specifics." As Leela made her way to the central lab, her heart beat faster. She had never worked on something this large-scale before. The pressure was immense, but she had come so far. She was no longer the unsure widow struggling to make ends meet. She was a skilled technician, a valuable member of the colony, and she wasn't going to let fear stand in her way. When she arrived at the lab, Jarek was already there, waiting for her. He led her to a large table where several alien blueprints and human schematics were spread out. The project was clearly enormous, and Leela could sense that this was a make-or-break moment. "This is the power grid project I mentioned," Jarek explained. "We need to integrate our alien technology with human-designed systems to increase efficiency. The problem lies in the materials. We've tried several methods, but none of them work as we need them to. It's a matter of finding the right balance." Leela studied the blueprints closely. She could see where the issues lay. The alien materials were more durable, but much more volatile than anything humans had ever worked with. The human systems were stable but lacked the power required to handle the energy output. It was a complicated problem, but one she was determined to solve. "We'll need to isolate the most stable parts of the human design," Leela said after a moment of thought. "Then we'll need to find a way to balance the energy input and output. If we can use the alien material to enhance the power transfer without causing instability, it could work." Jarek studied her for a moment, as if weighing her suggestion. Then he nodded. "That's exactly what we've been trying to do. You may be onto something. Let's see what we can do together." For the next few hours, Leela worked alongside Jarek, analyzing the materials, running simulations, and adjusting the designs. It was a grueling process, filled with trial and error, but with every failure, Leela grew more determined. She wasn't going to give up. She couldn't. This was her moment. As the sun set outside the lab, Leela looked up at the screen in front of her. The simulation was finally showing promising results. She had done it. She had solved the problem. "Jarek," Leela said, her voice filled with excitement, "I think I've got it. The integration works. We just need to refine the energy flow, and we'll be able to stabilize the system." Jarek walked over to the screen and looked at the results. A slow smile spread across his face. "Incredible. I never thought we'd get this far. You've done it, Leela. This is the breakthrough we've been waiting for." Leela felt a rush of pride. She had done it. She had solved a problem that had stumped the greatest minds in the colony. But more than that, she had proven to herself that she belonged. She was no longer just the poor widow from Earth. She was a skilled engineer, someone others could rely on. Over the next few weeks, Leela and Jarek worked tirelessly to refine the system, and soon it was ready for implementation. The project was hailed as a major success, and Leela was offered a permanent position on the engineering team. She had gone from being an outsider to one of the colony's most valued members. As Leela stood in front of the newly integrated power system, she couldn't help but smile. She had come so far, and she knew this was only the beginning. With the support of those around her and her own determination, there was no challenge she couldn't overcome. The future was bright, and for the first time since arriving on this strange planet, Leela felt like she was truly home. The weeks that followed the success of the Power Grid project brought a new sense of purpose to Leela. She had earned the respect of her colleagues, not just for her technical skill, but for her unwavering determination. The human engineer, once dismissed as inexperienced and out of place, was now an essential member of the colony's engineering team. The recognition didn't come without its challenges. Although most of the colony's members had accepted her, there were still some who viewed her as a newcomer, an outsider. Among them was a small group of Zorveni engineers, including Chief Engineer Kale, a man who was known for his pride and strict sense of tradition. He had often expressed his doubts about Lila's ability to contribute meaningfully to the colony's projects. One day, as Leela was working on a new design in the workshop, Kale entered the room. His tall figure cast a long shadow on the floor, and his piercing eyes seemed to scrutinize everything in the space. "Leela," he said, his tone cold, "I've reviewed your work on the power grid project. It was impressive, but I still don't understand why someone like you, a human, could have come up with a solution that none of us could." Leela looked up from her work, her heart pounding. She had anticipated this moment. Kale was known for his high standards and his sharp tongue, but she wasn't going to back down now. "I did what needed to be done, Kale," she said calmly. "I didn't come here to prove anyone wrong. I came here to help, and I did." Kale studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. "You've earned your place here, Leela," he said. "But there's still much more to prove. The colony is changing, and we need people who are willing to push the boundaries of what's possible. I want you to be part of that change. You've shown potential, but now I want to see you take on a new challenge. A real challenge." Leela's eyes narrowed in curiosity. "What do you mean?" Kale didn't say anything for a moment. He just stared at her, his gaze intense. Then, slowly, he walked over to the table and pulled out a set of blueprints. The design was intricate, filled with alien symbols that Lila didn't fully understand yet. "This," Kale said, "is a proposal for a new type of spacecraft, one that can travel beyond our current reach. The materials are untested, and the systems are unlike anything we've worked with before. We need someone who can think outside the box, someone who can bridge the gap between human technology and alien science." Leela's heart raced as she looked at the blueprints. The project was ambitious, even for the most experienced engineers. But there was something in her that couldn't resist the challenge. She had proven herself once, and now she had the chance to prove it again, this time on a larger scale. "I'll take it," Leela said, her voice steady. "I'll help you make it work." Kale gave her a rare, approving nod. "Good. We'll need your expertise. Let's see what you can do." Over the next few weeks, Leela immersed herself in the project. She worked tirelessly, studying the alien technology and finding ways to integrate it with human systems. There were moments of frustration, moments when she felt like giving up. But she never did. Each time she faced a roadblock, she found a way around it, using her creativity and determination to find a solution. One evening, as Leela sat alone in the lab, exhausted from a long day of work, Captain Ilara came to visit her. She looked around at the blueprints scattered across the table and smiled. "You're making incredible progress," Ilara said. "I've been keeping an eye on your work. You've impressed everyone, Leela." Leela smiled wearily. "Thanks, Captain. It's been tough, but I'm getting there. This project is bigger than anything I've ever done, but I'm not backing down. I'm going to make it work." "I know you will," Ilara said with a proud smile. "You've already shown us what you're capable of. This colony is lucky to have you." As the days passed, Leela continued to push forward with the project. She worked alongside the Zorveni engineers, each day learning more about their technology and ways of thinking. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension, especially when Kale pushed her to her limits. But with every challenge, Leela grew stronger, more confident, and more capable. Then, one day, the breakthrough came. Lila was the one to discover the missing link in the design, an innovative solution that would allow the spacecraft to travel farther and faster than originally thought possible. The system was complicated, but it worked. She had done it. Kale came to her that afternoon, his usual stern expression replaced by something softer, something that resembled respect. "You did it, Leela," he said. "You solved the problem. This spacecraft will work. It'll change everything for us." Leela felt a wave of pride wash over her. She had done it. She had completed the project. But more than that, she had proven her worth. She was no longer just a widow mother who had struggled to survive. She was a respected engineer, a woman whose determination and skill had changed the course of the colony's future. As the news of the project's success spread throughout the colony, Leela found herself at the center of a celebration. People gathered to thank her, to acknowledge her achievements. It was a moment she would never forget. But for Leela, the greatest reward wasn't the praise or recognition. It was the knowledge that she had come so far from being alone and unsure of her place in this new world to becoming a vital part of something greater. With a smile on her face and hope in her heart, Leela knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, and her journey was far from over. She had found her place, and she was ready for whatever came next.